Former British Prime Minister Tony Blair is now the envoy for the Quartet on the Middle East. He's with us exclusively. Prime Minister Blair, it's always good to have you here. Good to see you.
Thanks, man.
Let's talk about this story Lester was just reporting, these insider attacks on the rise in Afghanistan, the fear that we may leave behind a situation a lot less secure than we anticipated. Does it give us a hint of what's to come after a dozen years of fighting? Could we see chaos return to Afghanistan?
Well, it describes the challenge for sure. First of all, if I may, I'd like to pay tribute, though, to your armed forces, to the servicemen and women who serve in Afghanistan, and to give my deep sympathy to the families of those that have lost their loved ones there. We know what it's like from our side in Britain as well. We've lost over 400 soldiers in the course of the campaign in Afghanistan. And look, it's very difficult when people see these insider attacks. They say, well, is it all worth it? I think we have to go back 11 years to realize why it is we were in Afghanistan, to realize that we actually have made our country safer as a result of this, but to understand it's going to be an ongoing and difficult struggle. It's true that there are those that are insiders who are committing these crimes, but it's also true there are Afghan forces doing the job they should be doing.
I hate to put it on a scale of 1 to 10 question, but a scale of 1 to 10, 10 being the Taliban is back in power after we leave, a 1 being it's not going to happen. Where is it?
Well, I don't believe they will come back in power. I mean, I think that we shouldn't underestimate the degree to which, for example, your surge, where you put some 30,000 troops into Kandahar and Helmand, which are the most difficult provinces, actually they have had an impact. And it's, you know, what we're engaged in Afghanistan is a struggle in which there will be people that will carry on trying to do their very worst to disrupt the progress of that country. But it's important to understand there are also Afghans fighting on our side.
Let me ask you about things, the images we've seen around the world in the Middle East, the Horn of Africa over the last several weeks, protests against the United States. What is behind what seems to be this new wave of anti-Americanism, in your opinion?
Well, I think, you know, if I can say one thing about America and the way it's viewed in this part of the world, I've just come back from my 88th visit to the Middle East since leaving office. If I were you in America, I would not worry about being loved. That's not your role in the world, right? Your role is to be strong, and you are strong. And what you've got to understand is, in all of these circumstances, there are two groups of people struggling for the future in this part of the world. So it's true you have these anti-American protests, burning the flag, saying terrible things, trying to kill American people. You also have, in Libya, for example, after the tragic death of your ambassador there, you had thousands of people coming out protesting against the killers and demanding action taken against them. So, you know, in the end, you've got to see this as a long struggle in which we've got to be on the side of the decent people, and there are decent people out there.
But we do worry what the result of the Arab Spring, for example, has been. Mohamed Morsi, the new president of Egypt, gave an interview in advance of him coming to New York this week, and he said this: by backing dictatorial governments in the past that, quote, successive American administrations essentially purchased with American taxpayer money the dislike, if not the hatred, of the peoples of the region. How do you feel about that?
Well, I feel about that, you know, there are actually most of the governments of the world dealt with, for example, President Mubarak in Egypt, and by the way, for perfectly sensible reasons, my government did as well. Look, again, what you will find in all of these countries is they've thrown off a lot of these repressive dictatorships, but they're now having to learn that democracy isn't just about a way of voting, it's a way of thinking. You know, and if they want to make progress, we've got to help them, but also challenge them to realize that the test of a democracy is not just how the majority win, but how they then treat the minority, how they treat, for example, people of different religious faiths to their own.
I want to just end on a question. I know it's near and dear to your heart. You're here for Climate Week as well. We've had a crazy week in this year in this country of extreme weather. Are you seeing around the world the kind of motivation and will that's necessary to A, admit there's a problem, and then address the problem?
Well, not enough, frankly. I mean, I think we've got to be very clear about this. I know we've got all these economic problems to deal with, but this climate issue is real. We're very irresponsible for future generations if we don't deal with it, and we should recover, I think, a sense of urgency about it.
And hope we will. Former British Prime Minister Tony Blair, it's always nice to have you in New York, always nice when you stop by.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. It's